Okay, hello all you crazy people out there. My name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games. And welcome back to making a 3D tower defense game in Game Maker Studio 2. So between the last time I was recording this and today, I have discovered a new bug. Or depending on how you would break down a bug, several new bugs involving the game crashing whenever you try to send in a wave of enemies, which is kind of a big deal. And I've gone ahead and debugged that a little bit on my own, and I'm going to take on a fix for that now.
Hey.
So there's a few problems here. One, if you read the stack trace, you'll see that the in entity foe down here, where you try to set a foe on a path, it breaks because essentially this is not defined as anything, and the reason for that is pass by reference. When you go and load a map from a file, the reference that the waves have, and by extension the enemies have to the list of path nodes breaks, which is kind of annoying. And there's a little bit more going on, but first I'm going to deal with that. Where is load? Like seriously, where is load? Here it is. Load map. So when you load a map, the path nodes is essentially recreated, and the old array that used to exist there is gone. Is not referenced by anything. It's not populated with anything, and anything that already references that does not get updated. This reference is old and not useful. So instead of passing this by reference all over the place, I'm just going to access it directly wherever it's needed. Let's see. Where are the waves created? Here. So I'm going to remove this path nodes parameter from the wave definition, and then I'm going to kind of go down the line and remove the path parameter from the wave definition. And when you instantiate an entity foe, instead of taking the path as a parameter, we're going to access that variable directly. It's not the nicest software engineering design, but it'll do. And okay, that's all I have to do on that front. So that's not the only part of this issue. Another part of this issue is that when a path node is loaded out of a data file, oops. We now have a different error with unknown object.clone not set before reading it, and that different error is when you load a struct out of a data file or otherwise from JSON, it does not contain its methods that it used to, meaning that like vector.clone is not attached to it anymore. And to be honest, this can be its own script somewhere else. Anyway, it doesn't need to be a method. All right, is that everything? I think that's everything. So instead of we're going to fix this by saying function. Actually, you know what? This is just going to be a generic clone method, and we're going to do the same thing. We're just not going to be object orienting it. So where are potential places where the clone method might be called? Here. All right, we are going to be unobject orienting this. There's an off by 1 error in the position of my fingers on the keyboard. All right. And here. So the game should run now. I have no idea. I can't believe I didn't test this at the end of the last video, but evidently I didn't. And the whole thing broke, which is nice. So I pushed a commit with I made a release rather, because sometimes I leave commits buggy on purpose. I made a release which contained a bug, which made the whole thing not work, which is kind of embarrassing. If I If I hit F2, they are indeed following the path, which I think is quite nice. That's, it would have been a little bit of testing I should have done earlier. Anyway, let's commit this change. That'll do it. So what I'm doing today, user interface stuff. User interface stuff is kind of the bane of my existence, and the bane of the existence of a lot of people who do game maker stuff. I would say, and I imagine some people would point out, that I've made a user interface system for Game Maker Studio 2.3. It's not really meant for games. If we jump over to my itch page, this is more meant for like software engineering things. This user interface stuff, this is like a Windows Form .NET sort of user interface widget element things, and not really something that you would see in a game. I'm not going to use this, but I would like to point out that yes, I do know that it is there, and that I have made it, and hopefully some people have found it useful. I certainly find it useful for things other than actual games. Let's see. So something that a lot of people have been using for user interfaces in Game Maker Studio 2.3 are sequences. Sequences are a new data type, which are essentially an animation timeline that you can attach objects to and do things with, such as animate them. I was planning on doing that at first, but I don't think I'm going to do that now. I changed my mind at the last minute, partially because I think it's honestly kind of overkill for what I'm looking for. I just want to have stuff on the screen, and I don't really care if it animates in a fancy way, at least not right now. Not for this game, not for this series. And since I haven't spent as much time messing with them as a lot of other people probably have, I don't want to do something and like break it and not know why, and go on to waste a lot of time, because God knows I waste a lot of time in this series. So let me just go with the good old-fashioned. Where's the room that everything lives in? Where on earth did I... RM test. Okay, that's not a temporary thing. That shouldn't be in temporary stuff. I'm just going to move it over there. So I said way back at the beginning that I was planning on kind of foregoing objects completely for this game. And of all the places where that might have ended up not being the case, I honestly didn't expect it to be user interface stuff. I am going to create some like button objects and other objects and just put them down in the room editor. And instead of drawing them regularly, I'll draw them on the graphical user interface layer, and it'll hopefully it should work. So let's go and find some 9-slice code. All right, a lot of people have written 9-slice code. I've got a couple versions of it somewhere. Not in that project, apparently. Maybe in this project. I know I have one somewhere in this project. Nope. Draw rectangle 9s. This is a 9-slice script. As you can see, it takes a sprite, it takes an x, y, width, and a height, and then it just draws a 9-slice to fill that rectangle based on some sprite. Let's go and we're going to call that draw rectangle 9s, which, if you want, can be a Nier Automata reference or something. And we are going to, let's see, I'm going to take a sprite, or create a sprite, which is just going to be a, where are we? A generic button-looking thing. And we can do that with something like a, can I have a rounded rectangle? I could have sworn there was like a rounded rectangle option for drawing in the Game Maker sprite editor, but apparently not. We can start with that, and then this is just going to be our 9-slice. This should also be by the way, this should be 48 by 48 because there are 9 sections in here, hence the name 9-slice. Instead of 64 by 64, just so that all the pixels are not like cut in half or anything. Okay, that'll do it. SPR underscore 9-slice. Next, let's go and make an object. objects are, just call them a UI button. We can drag the sprite onto that. They can be visible for all I care. And this is an instance layer. So that will be UI underscore game. I can drag a few of these on. I can also, I believe, resize them. This is not what they're going to look like on the screen. This is just me sizing them so that I know approximately how much space they'll take up. And let's see. I can control C and V, I can. And they will be filled in with a 9slice later. I will be overriding the draw event. Let's see. And then they'll be controlled whether or not they're visible and like depending on what's on the screen and that sort of thing. So we'll be going with this. If I were to run the game now, you wouldn't see them. Actually, you might see them. They'll probably be fighting with the floor somewhere off in the middle of the map. Over here-ish, okay, on the end of the map. They are fighting with the floor. They're being drawn in world space and not in screen space. So I think I know how this is going to work. One, let's close that thing on the side so that it's not taking up space. Two, we're going to gather all the user interface elements and do stuff with them. So we can down here somewhere in the game constructor, layer get ID, and then takes a layer name. And that's going to return a layer, which is, I believe, going to give us some access to every object in the layer. So how do you do that? I was experimenting with this. You know what? I don't even have to do that. I can say with UI button, I can do stuff. So I can do things like put them in a list. No, I don't want that to be a local variable. I can put them in a list. And I can make them invisible. And now they won't be drawn, but I will have references to each of these.
Hey.
Not sets before reading it. Okay, that's because we are still in the constructor. So I have to use the other keyword to get what's outside the with statement. So they're no longer on the screen, which is fine. Next, let's go down to, for example, GUI and say loop over that list. And we can then tell it to execute its draw event.
Hey.
I may make this a method instead of just a draw event, since I like myself. I like my methods, and they're not here. Does it not want to do the draw event like that, or has something else gone wrong? There we go. Okay, so those are actually a little bit big. I wasn't thinking that they should be that big. But you see the point. We can draw elements like this. Let me make this a commit. All right, I want to, because good code practices and stuff, I want to make the 9slice edition a Windows. Shut up. I want to make the 9slice edition a separate commit because I am allowed to be picky about these things. Draw UI elements on the UI. Okay. And then let's bring that back. Draw rectangle 9S. And now we can go back to giving these things a method. If I am in an actually, I've been using the terminology render for draw events of my own, so we'll do that just for the sake of consistency. If I create a function and assign it to a variable inside a can create event, do I have to wrap it inside method function? I don't think I do, but I'll find out in a minute. We can just, God, go away. We can test that by saying, calling the render method, and then seeing if it spits out the correct ID, the correct instance ID. If it breaks or otherwise doesn't do what it should, okay, there we go. I see we are indeed showing the correct instance IDs down here. And by that I mean it wasn't all like undefined or all the same. There was a different one for each button on the screen. All right, that makes my job a little bit easier because it's one problem I don't have to contend with. And by that I mean about one line of code and a couple of characters. Let's actually draw the nine slice. So that can start with sprite index. Do I want to give it an image index also? I give it an image index. Just in case I want to have like different versions. Doesn't really cost anything. We'll go with 0 for now in any case. X is going to be my X, Y is going to be my Y. Width is going to be sprite get width. Is there? Okay, so objects do have a built-in sprite width value, which is slightly bigger, slightly easier to type out than sprite get width. And we can just we can multiply the sprite width by the scaling, since dragging stuff around in the room editor just messes with the scaling ultimately, as well as the rotation. Okay. I see, however, that it is not quite correct. Okay, you know what it is? I'm dumb. Sprite width and height take into account the image X scale and Y scale already. When I printed them out earlier, and I didn't even notice this, that was already factored in. I was like 64 times 5 is, what, 320 or whatever, and now they are the correct size. Okay, crisis averted. I like averting crises. I can multi-select by holding down Shift in the room editor. You can tell how infrequently I use the room editor. And we can also give these things some text. So text might be... I'm going to set up text in the variable definitions. These are one of those things that I made a video on a long time ago, despite never actually using myself because I so rarely use the room editor. Variable definitions are nice. And we can set this to a string. I don't need the double quotes there, do I? Because this is built into the IDE. And I can go to variables in the room editor and edit the default value of text. And this can be like, oh god, what was it? What are the tower names? This would be up here. Pebble shooter, fire tower, friendly tower. We can make this first one pebble shooter. Bugs are weak to rock and whatever. We can make this one the fire tower because bugs are also weak to fire. Has that one actually been implemented in any capacity? And we can make this one, what was this one? The one that buffs everyone? That name might be a little long. It might not actually fit in the button. Anyway, we have our variables. set up. And now we can draw text. We'll start with X, Y, and text. We will position these later. And I misspelled a 4-letter word text. Congratulations, me. Alright, I see the text color is black, which is not really what I want. Eventually, I do want to use Scribble to do all the text in this game. That would, 1, make text drawing a little bit faster. Not that I'm expecting to have to do a lot of text drawing in this game, but 2, it would allow for some fancy text effects, such as inline text color and other helpful things. But for now, let's go and create ourselves a font. I'm trying, and for the most part failing, to just go with a regular prefixing system for GameMaker resources, at least in the series. Normally, I would go with something like F game button text or something like that, similar to the objects names for font names. But I will attempt to go with something that is at least somewhat recognizable as GameMaker conventions. So that'll be FNT_game buttons. The font itself, I don't really have a strong opinion about, as long as it's anything that isn't Arial. I've used Calibri in the past as like my generic default font, and I think I might as well keep going with that. Let's make it bold and size 16. That should be good enough. If we're going to talk about optimization, we really shouldn't, it's really not a good idea to, in every single user interface element, set the font and color at the same time if they're all going to be the same. You really should do that, like, down here. Like before you start drawing on all of them, and then reset it after you're done. That is because of the way that GameMaker batches stuff, and to an extent the way that all computer graphics APIs batch draw commands. You want to do as much as you can at once without changing the internal state, because that makes it much easier for the computer to combine vertex buffers, which I will talk about eventually. I'm just going to go with this now. Let's also say draw. Like, for now, there's only 3 buttons. It's not a huge deal. But if I eventually later create more, which I'm sure I will, that's something that I should consider. Draw set H-line. We're going to be centering that, and we're going to be centering it vertically as well. I believe FA_center and FA_middle actually are the same value inside GameMaker, but they they're just called center and middle to differentiate between horizontal and vertical alignment instructions. I guess the idea being that center and middle are kind of synonyms in the English language, but I guess the idea is if you were to use something like a word processor and you were to try and make text centered horizontally, you would use the center button in the word processor in Microsoft Word and Google Docs or whatever, and middle is just the opposite. I don't know if that's the reasoning or if that's just what I created in my head. Anyway, we can commit this. And let's see, I am actually going to go and go ahead and create another, what was it? Oh, SPR9 slice, and create a another image frame for this. And it's going to be kind of grayish, light gray, and this is going to be for when your mouse is hovering over it. Let's see. So there exists in GameMaker cursor events for things such as cursor enter and cursor leave. Somewhere mouse enter, mouse leave. This is for when your mouse enters and exits an image. Enters and exits an object sprite, rather. I do not like those. I do not like the events aside from things like general things like create, step, draw. I try to avoid them whenever possible. Async is hard to avoid if you're doing things that require async, but like collision events, path end, animation end, game start and game end can have their uses, as well as obviously destroy and cleanup. I prefer to use the general events, and anything that can be checked in the step event, I prefer to do there. Point and rectangle exists, as do mouse X and mouse Y. And point and rectangle does exactly what you think it does. It checks to see if a point is contained within a rectangle. Like this, and we can say if you are hovering over the mouse, over the button, and you can draw a different sprite, some image. So let's go through this more slowly. If your mouse is within the bounds of the rectangle, you're going to draw subimage 1, which is the grayer one in the 9-slice sprite, and otherwise you're just going to draw the subimage 0, which is the default one, the first one, whatever. So you can see I now move my mouse cursor over those buttons, and they respond. Next up is clicking. This is sort of getting into the territory of putting game logic in the draw event. On many occasions in the past, I have expressed that I don't really care about putting game logic in the draw event. If it works, it works. I'd much prefer let me try that again. I'd much rather prefer put game logic in the draw GUI event when your mouse cursor interacts with an element than I would to have like a copy of the same code in the step event. Detecting like the state of the buttons on the screen and whether or not where your mouse cursor is. I hate doing that. Some people do that for some unknown reason. I think that is ridiculous. And interactions like that should just go where the draw code is. There are some issues with putting game logic in the draw event. I'm not going to get into too much of it now, but in a nutshell, if the draw event runs more than once, which it can if there's more than one view active, then the game logic will also be running more than once, which is generally not what you want. I don't know who in their right minds renders the graphical user interface twice per step, so that's not really going to be a concern right here. Anyway, you know what I can do? I can, instead of having an extra variable floating around, this is just where all of the stuff relating to the mouse can go. How long have I been recording for? I've been recording for 34 minutes. I'm not planning on doing too much more in this video. Actual, like, implementing the user interface, I think is going to come later in next week's video. I just want to have the systems in place. If mouse check button pressed, that's when you click, which is the mouse down event. We can say that's a bit of a hello world with some additional existential dread. We can do that. We have interaction. By the way, is the if I hit the tab key with the new font, this is easier to read. All right. If I select an existing thing, more text appears. Okay, that's nice. Fancy. I probably should have set that font earlier to begin with. Right now, I can just spawn towers by clicking, and I think have I still got it so that if I shift click, I create one of the friendly towers? I do. That's obviously going to change. And I kind of want to put that off to the next video for the sake of separating like gameplay implementation and the user interface system. And I think I've gotten enough done today, so I'm going to end this off. For now, my name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games. I hope you found that useful. In the next part, we're going to be making these buttons actually do stuff. I have a Patreon, so if you want to contribute towards these videos being made, I will have a link to that somewhere in the video, I'm sure. Otherwise, I try to post about 2 of these a week, one of these and one tutorial. I hope you found that interesting, and I will see you all later. If you want the code for this project, that will also be down in the video description. Check for the 0. What are we up to? 1.8? 1.9? I don't remember. It's going to be marked as a release in the GitHub organization project thing. I will see you all later. Special thanks to Edward Holt, Indie Punch, Jason, and Zenith for supporting these videos. If you want your name in the credits or to hear yourself shouted out at the end, head over to the Patreon page in the video description to join the fun.